So, guys, as I mentioned, I once again have an amazing guest today. It's Bette from Acala. She was on the roundtable last Thursday. And Bette, here you are. Welcome.
Yeah, hi, Scott. Nice to be on your show again. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got you twice in like 5 days. I think that's a record. I think you're the first person who's probably been on twice in that amount of time. So I have to ask you, the bridge hack. I mean, can we just expect basically that every bridge right now is eventually going to get hacked or exploited?
Well, we kind of like living in this reality of whether you like it or not, there's multiple chains out there, and they're going to stay there. So the challenge of having be able to bridge those chains, well, if you're living in countries, you do want planes fly to each other's continent, and also you want to do business with each other. So that is a product market fit there. So again, I think this is another situation where there is a product market fit. So there's a need for a bridge to do whatever the bridge does. Sure. And then the tech, and then the design, and then the security level hasn't gone there yet, right? And then I think it's easy, or it's for when the event happened, and then there's catch-22, and then you say, oh, you could have done this and that. But then if you look back in history, as humans, we never learn until something dramatic actually happened, right? And then in crypto, this is actually more dramatic because everything is in the wide open. And then in crypto Twitter, everything just like exploded within seconds of this happen. Of course, this one is like within an hour of things happen. So yeah, so I think there's good lessons to be learned again from this one as well. And I think the team can come out stronger, before the hack as well. So
yeah, I agree that it will inevitably be fixed. You talk about the fact that it's sort of amplified because of crypto Twitter. It's also amplified because we're talking about people's money, right? And in other markets, you don't really worry about $200 million just disappearing randomly because of something wrong in a code or exploit or a hack or something like this. And this has become kind of unique. The problem is that, as you said, humans don't learn lessons. It would be one thing if this was the first bridge, but it seems now that hackers are just attacking bridges, and that anyone who's developing a bridge should have learned the lessons from the previous ones. You shouldn't have to have your own bridge hack to learn the lesson, right?
Well, the challenge there is the hacks was on different teams, and then each time the hack is different, right? Yeah. So I think there's a myth there. When you build, say, let's build a new bridge, you try to solve the problem very fundamentally. Like you have a completely new design, and you think this cool design is going to solve the problem there was. And then usually the problem is usually not that simple. This is the same thing I think goes with blockchain. Everybody tries to this one is more scalable, this one is more decentralized, but the problem is never one layered. For example, for the bridge, yes, this time is that one line of code, but I'm sure next time it's going to be a different line of code and then a different place for it to hack. Yeah. So if at least at this stage, the bridge is not fully decentralized. Even if it's decentralized, it still can't say it's completely safe, right? I think that's a myth. If you are decentralized, then you're completely safe. You can't actually say that. So you need to think about these things like normal software engineer. If you design a rocket, if one component actually fail on the rocket, well, this is actually, I borrowed the line from our CTO, Brian, it's like if one component failed, then another component actually picks up the failure and it can continue to function. The rocket won't just blow up because some software actually makes some bugs. And software always have bugs. That's the fundamental assumption that you should have. Even if you believe in code as law, the code will always have bugs. There's never software that doesn't have bugs. So I think the mindset needs to shift to, instead of writing perfect code, which will never happen, only happen in idealism, you should go into a mindset of how can I build layers of protection? If the smart contract fails, is there a fallback? Is there like an off-chain stuff that you can use to check on-chain? And then maybe there's another layer is, can you actually write some incentive programs so maybe Whitehat can actually front run these type of hacks? And then maybe there's another layer is maybe proof of reserve or some other mechanism can be used to actually constantly checking. And then there's probably other layer to say, maybe there's a rate limit for how much that can be withdrawn for large amount. So you can actually put those layers in. So then doesn't matter, what kind of bridge you are, attackers can attack one side, but it will never the probability of penetrating all those layers will be very small. Then you gradually increase the level of security over time, rather than depending on, my solution is fully decentralized or this and that, like rely on a single point of enhancement to bring the security level up.
So we need those multiple levels of protection, which then begs the question. I agree 1000% with what you said at the beginning. I've always said we live in a multi-chain world. No single chain is going to dominate. Therefore, we need them to be interoperable or crypto never scales, right? I think that's very clear. But does that mean that no bridges should basically be launched at this point until you have those 5 levels of, security that you just talked about? Because what you just talked about is ideal, but it doesn't exist right now.
I think some teams are already building it, right? Especially the ones that's got hacked before. They've got a baseline to work on. So I think there's 2 ways to the bridge approach right now. One is the native multi-chain ecosystem. So those are like, Polkadot through XCM. And then there's like Cosmos also has their IBC bridges. And then I guess when ETH becomes 2.0, finally, when there's sharding, there's also multi-chain there. So those are, and also roll-ups, right? So those are native multi-chain. So then within that ecosystem, you've got a certain level of security there, especially security levels like Polkadot. Then you are actually share security that are very high level amongst all the chains that you are trading. However, the reality is the world also exists outside of this native multi-chain. And this is where the challenge is. And this is really rely on multiple parties working together and putting in those multiple levels, right? And also have to come up with the best practices, right? So some of this is not technical specific, it's actually design specific. So I think that's the area that we can collaboratively work together as an industry to kind of like improve that, right? So
we just talked about the merge. Obviously, the move to Ethereum 2.0 is arguably the most bullish narrative, or certainly the most compelling and important narrative that we have in the space right now. I mean, this may be one of the fundamentally most difficult and important things that's ever happened in crypto, right? I mean, really, I think Ethereum successfully make it. Are you confident that the merge will go off without a hitch, that it will work? I mean, we're already seeing now some miners sort of rebelling and saying that they want to fork the chain, all this stuff. I mean, could go well, could go pretty poorly.
Well, I'm not in a position to say how confident I am because I'm not in the core dev team. I'm sure all the core dev team are doing their job. And then I think for the merge, it's really an upgrade. Really an upgrade from proof of work to proof of stake. It's not really the really hard part like sharding and everything else. So I think that kind of like is a very confined scope for folks to actually move from currently proof of work to actually to proof of stake network. So I think that needs to be clear. It's not quite like once you merge, you kind of get scalability from day one. It's really just changing of consensus after that point. And then also like there's harder row down there. If we can successfully merge, then effectively you still have to figure out, do you actually go with sharding? I think there's still conversations going on in terms of sharding versus roll-ups. There's certainly folks like supporting one side more than the other, but then either way, there's actually technical details that hasn't been laid out. That's probably more of a concern because you're kind of stuck in the middle state, right? While like applications are still running on these proof of stake chains, but they still need scalability as they move forward. So what are you going to do with that? And then in the meantime, the multi-chain sort of future that we say is already a reality, isn't it? Because folks really vote with their code. So the loudest voice on Twitter doesn't mean the code actually is deployed or written on GitHub. So you can see already multiple ecosystems already got a lot of traction, and for different reasons, because you can gradually see the pattern, isn't it? Initially, it's all copies of Ethereum doing exactly the same thing, but now they all develop a certain level of caricature, intentionally or non-intentionally, right? So some chains are probably more attracting more gamers or traders because of the the sort of properties that they have on their chain. And then some other chains are probably specialized in certain other area that they are much better or specialized in. So you can start to see slightly things are happening that way, probably organically. I think some chains are intentionally designed that way, like Acala. We are kind of designed as an app chain, but some other ecosystem are certainly, they grow into a more creator sort of ecosystem than a more like a generic sort of layer one. So yeah, so whether we like it or not, it's already a multi-chain reality that we are living in.
Well, you just brought up obviously what you're doing at Acala. I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk a bit more about that. And then also I'm really interested as to why you decided to build on Polkadot, right? Yeah, obviously we have all of these options right now, and that's where you focused your time and energy.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we really want to make some changes, whether big or small, using the blockchain technology to bring actually transparency, accountability, traceability, and kind of like sovereignty to the financial world. And then certainly decentralization and blockchain is a big part of it, but it's actually not, it doesn't create all the solution. So that's why for Acala, we've been pushing the narrative of hi-fi, so hybrid finance. So certainly, as an app, so we are an application chain. So as an app chain, we have the security level powered by Polkadot, transparency of a public blockchain, but also at the same time, being able to be customizable at an enterprise security level, and also scalability for a private network that required for being scaled up and used by sort of mass market. So that's kind of like where, like in the very long run, right? I don't think it's going to happen like tomorrow kind of thing. So, and then initially when we were doing our experiments, we did, wrote some Solidity code, but very quickly we found out it's really good for some proof of concept. But when you get to some applications, it's very hard to actually build a software that we want using a Solidity code. So then we actually evaluate a number of solutions, including Cosmos, Polkadot, ETH2, and also a couple of others, but they no longer kind of exist today. And then we eventually arrive at the substrate and then Polkadot for actually a number of reasons. Number one is the share security. So as a builder, right? So we're actually also entrepreneur, which means you don't just write a piece of software, but you also make sure there's a product market fit. You actually can launch, and then this user can actually use it, right? So if we're building something financial, you actually need a high security level. And then Polkadot actually provides it. So today, when Acala launched, we actually immediately get however $1 billion market cap level of network security that Polkadot has. That's how much it's securing an Acala chain without us going out to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to actually secure our own proof of stake chain, right? And then we do get a chance to graduate, if we do want to, down the track to become an independent proof of stake chain, but still connected back to the mothership, if you like. So that is one thing as an entrepreneur, I think, why we actually chose Polkadot. And the second thing is purely technical. So our vision is like, if we actually want to do this hi-fi, right? Smart contract is not good enough. So for example, one of the core sort of functionality we offer on Acala is an AUSD credit system. So this is a MakerDAO-like, credit issuance, like a decentral bank, right? And then we need to upgrade from, so when the 2018 Black Thursday happened, there's a lot of like liquidation, Oracle failure, liquidator failure on there. So we've learned from the experience and they all come out much stronger like this time when the market crashed, right? Because there's like off-chain systems that's been built to make it a lot more robust, but still they're off-chain. So in our solution, we want to make stuff as much on-chain as possible. So the only way that we can actually do it is building on our own chain. That's why app chain is kind of necessary if you do want to build a very sophisticated, sort of like a more enterprise-grade version of the application that we built. So yeah, so I think technically the substrate sort of stack both allows flexibility, but also a very high level of security as well. So as kind of like a builder, like a developer, that's very cool, right? So because that gives you a very big design space. It's like if you think about Solidity, it's like a 2D paper that you can draw on. Substrate is almost like a 3D space that you can do various different things and composing things very differently. So that's technical. And then I think the third thing that really made the call there is developer community. I think undoubtedly, Gav, had a really great developer following. So and then we went to a hackathon in Hangzhou for Substrate, the first Substrate hackathon in 2019. Our CTO was judged on that event, and then we were sitting in the theater, and then Gav was giving a lecture on the stage. And then afterwards, he come back, and then we had a notification on our phone. He opened his laptop and he did something, and then we received a notification on our phone. And he's actually just submitted a pull request into the GitHub. So he's still coding. So, he's basically all into the tech and building good tech for entrepreneurs like ourselves to be able to build real life applications that actually solve certain problems, bring new solutions to the world, right? So I think that's really cool. So that's really the three things that really make it stand out.
Yeah, that's obviously well thought out and great reasons. So my final question is, let's assume that everything is actually being built well, things are stop breaking, we don't get hacks. What ideally does this interoperable world look like, where the bridges work and DeFi is humming along and there's no problems? Like, what's the end game, end goal here for Acala, I guess, and also just for the ecosystem as a whole?
Yeah, I think you will be using all the services that we're providing from Acala, from DeFi, accessing assets, new asset classes, new way of earning returns, and then also new way of investing, and then also new way of transmitting values across the world without even noticing there's blockchain. Right. Yes, maybe your one transaction, like you invest in certain assets and then they DCA, right? They help you to reinvest every time. And then you swipe your credit card to use the earnings to buy sushi at lunchtime. They probably cross 5 different chains and then consists of 10 applications working together. But for you only care about that one sort of interaction with your service provider, and they are integrating the rest of it. So that's, at least in my vision, that is where the real adoption will actually come in. And then certainly that requires a full stack approach, right? Doesn't mean one project, but actually means full stack integrating with multiple parties to bring that to life. Yeah.
So the answer is when it all looks like the things we're familiar with and you have no idea what's happening in the background and we're not even having conversations about the tech and the bridges and all of those, that's really the end goal that we will eventually reach. Really?
Yeah, I think so. Just like today, you don't talk about my TCP/IP.
How you use your credit card or your
packet
phone.
Lost. You, like just on the streaming, right? You weren't actually discussing with me the packet's lost, right? You don't talk about that sort of weird stuff, right? Because we're just streaming as it should.
Thank goodness, because I would have no idea what the hell we were talking about. And then
exactly that means the tech has reached a mature level. So right now we're probably still at baby stage.
So we're still pretty well. I mean, it gives you just more evidence of just how early we are, which isn't a bad thing. It's just important for people, I think, to realize it. Before, I know I was supposed to let you go, but now I'm just really curious. What's your background and how did you find Bitcoin in the first place? Because it's incredible, obviously, what you're building at this point.
So I'm an engineer by trade. So I did a bachelor in engineering and specialized in software. So as part of the electrical and electronic department. So I was a developer when I first came out of uni. But after a few years coding, I've gone down the dark side. So I was a product manager after that. And then I also did my MBA, so gone even darker after that. So I've kind of navigated. So, but which actually fits crypto really well because I see a lot of talent in crypto. They have multiple, so they're like this T-shaped talent, right? So they've got their expertise, but they're also able to cross field. So yeah, so that kind of is where I come about. And then so for me, it's like the Bitcoin.
But I know you're a bit. I know we've talked before, and you're like, I'm a Bitcoiner. right? I mean, which is so funny. Like it's like you're not allowed to be a Bitcoiner if you do anything else in crypto, but I think we share that we can be Bitcoiners and still have other things. But
Who
how'd you
is
actually
not?
find? Right. Well, I guess the toxic maxis who tell us that we're all evil, right? But those people. But how'd you find Bitcoin itself? Was it through that process of programming and being an engineer that you found Bitcoin, or was there some aha moment with the actual asset?
Oh, there was a long time ago. I was told about Bitcoin from an influencer, and then I dismissed it because of the reputation of the influencer.
It wasn't me,
So,
was it? No, I'm just kidding.
well, I guess that taught me a lesson that kind of echo with your opening line about it doesn't matter how many news there is, it kind of fade away. I think same with people and information that you get is like the only way you won't fear about death is you die every day, right? So if I die every day and not actually judge that person, I would be in a very different position today. So I dismiss him like for the first time, and then a couple of years later, I actually come across, not from a person, but I actually come across the white paper from somewhere. And then this time I actually read the white paper and then decided to code Bitcoin myself using JavaScript. So,
wow.
well, that's mostly for fun to actually understand what's happening.
Yeah, for
so
understanding.
Once I did
yourself.
that, it was like an eye-opening experience. I was like, I have to change my career somehow. I just want to spend as much time as I want into this field. So, so I still don't know where I'm going to end up, but I'm keeping my mind open and just keep building. So.
Well, I'm glad we have you and brilliant people like you in this space that are continuing to build, because I don't know, maybe then we'll get hacked a little less. That would be nice.
Well, we get what we get, so we can learn and grow, I guess. Yeah.
I love your attitude, and you have a great answer for everything, and love everything that you're doing. So thank you so much. But let me. What's your Twitter name again? It's Bette Chen TT, correct? BetteChenTT. Everybody go follow her because she's obviously awesome.
I don't tweet a lot.
Oh, that's okay. Follow her anyway so that you can keep up when she's there. Well, thank you, Bette, so much. It was a pleasure to have you back, and you're welcome anytime. I'm sure we'll do this again very soon.
Yeah, appreciate it, Scott. It's always fun to be on the show.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
She's awesome, huh? See, that's one of those ones where it's like backed by popular demand. Because I got so many comments about how much you guys wanted to hear from her again. So I see you guys talking over here. You guys obviously love her. She's remarkable. She's awesome. Can't fathom that Bette is the same species as me. Well, yeah, I got that. I can't even. Women rule. Get yours, girl. Yeah, I get it. You guys like her. She'll be here again. I promise.